In the upcoming episode of The Young and the Restless, the boundaries between reality and performance, trust and manipulation, begin to collapse within the walls of an intricately designed psychological trap. Aristotle Dumas, the elusive puppeteer who has haunted the shadows of Genoa City's elite, finally steps into the light, but not through conventional confrontation. Instead, he unveils a challenge wrapped in spectacle, cruelty, and layers of intellectual deceit. A labyrinth built not merely of hedges or stone, but of psychological warfare. One by one, he leads the city's most powerful figures, Victor Newman, Billy Abbott, Kyle Abbott, Audra Charles, and Lily Winters, into the heart of a maze, promising that the first person to find the exit will be granted an audience with him. But this isn't a game of speed or strength. It's a battle of wits, desperation, and hidden truths. It is not a test of escape. It is a test of survival. From the moment they cross the threshold of the maze, the group understands that this is no casual competition. It's as though the very air inside is different, heavy, thick with tension and illusion. There are no maps, no guidance, no means of communication once inside. Even more disturbing, Dumas' assistant, a cold and enigmatic figure known only as Carter, confiscates all weapons. Even Victor's personal firearm, a symbol of his control and readiness, is stripped away, leaving him exposed in a way he hasn't felt in decades. For Victor Newman, this is an unprecedented scenario. He is used to dominating boardrooms, orchestrating family empires, and shaping destinies from behind a desk. Now, he is reduced to a solitary figure surrounded by confusion, paranoia, and disorientation. The man who commands fear finds himself powerless, his authority rendered meaningless in a game where the rules bend like shadows. Initially, Billy and Kyle treat the maze as a curious challenge. Billy, ever the risk-taker, strides in with a mix of excitement and suspicion, trying to read the trick beneath the trick. Kyle, determined to prove himself amid the legacy of both Jack and Diane, believes that perhaps by outsmarting the others, he will gain not only Dumas' attention but also a new form of leverage in the shifting power struggle consuming Genoa City. Audra, as always, plays the long game. She remains quiet, calculating, her every movement measured not in footsteps but in intentions. She doesn't seek Dumas for answers, she seeks him for advantage. And Lily, though hesitant at first, knows that running from a challenge never helped the Winters family rise. She steps in last, heart pounding, aware that danger doesn't always roar, it whispers. But it is Victor's descent into the maze that sets the narrative ablaze. Unlike the others, he doesn't rely on guesswork or bravado. He studies, hesitates, calculates. Yet even the great Victor Newman cannot prepare for the psychological toll of a puzzle designed by a man who has been watching him for years. As he turns corner after corner, each path leads not to progress but to confusion. The sun scorches above. The hedges seem to thicken. At times, the walls appear to shift. It's as though the maze itself is alive, mocking him, feeding off his pride and stamina. What began as a test now feels like a sentence. He is sweating, breathing heavily, his footsteps dragging over gravel and dry earth. His suit, once immaculate, clings to his skin. Time loses meaning. Minutes blur into hours. And slowly, fatigue takes hold, not just of the body, but the mind. He begins to doubt. Not just Dumas, but himself. He tries to call out, once, twice, then louder. Help. The word, once so commanding in his voice, now feels small and hollow. His throat is dry. The only response is silence. No birds. No wind. No echo. Just stillness. He slams a fist against the hedge wall, expecting it to yield, but it does not. He tries to retrace his steps, but each return route leads somewhere new. Panic flares, a feeling so foreign to Victor that it sends a bolt of nausea through him. What if this is not a test at all? What if this is punishment? Elsewhere in the maze, others are facing their own trials. Billy stumbles upon a section of the maze filled with mirrors, distorted reflections that replay scenes from his past. Gambling debts, broken relationships, the face of Delia. It destabilizes him. Kyle hears whispers, his mother's voice, Jack's disappointment, Summer's betrayal, and cannot tell if they are real or planted. Lily walks alone, coming across sealed envelopes nailed into the hedge, each one labeled with a name of someone she's lost. Devon. Neil. Hillary. She begins to cry, not out of fear, but exhaustion. This isn't a maze, it's a memory trap, and every turn is tailored to each person's weakness. Audra, ever the survivor, manages to suppress her emotion. But even she pauses when she finds a blood-stained note with her name on it, reading, "You've played everyone. But can you play me?" Meanwhile, Victor stumbles. He hasn't eaten. His body is drenched in sweat. He falls to his knees, clutching his chest for a moment, not in pain, but in despair. He looks up to the sky, not in prayer, but in fury. This isn't how he imagined his legacy, lost in a trap built by a coward. But even then, something inside him doesn't break. It hardens. Even in weakness, Victor Newman remembers who he is. He digs his hands into the soil, rises, and begins to walk again. Not because he believes there's a way out, but because surrender is never an option. Outside the maze, Carter watches on multiple monitors. He sips from a glass of water as if it were champagne, amused by the chaos within. Dumas is not with him, he is elsewhere, waiting. This game is not about winning. It is about revelation. He wants each player to see themselves, stripped of power, isolated from allies, confronting ghosts they thought buried. The maze is not meant to destroy them. It is meant to expose them. Back inside, Victor reaches a clearing. There's nothing there but a chair and a camera. He sits, not out of comfort, but necessity. The camera light flicks on. "You've made it farther than anyone," says a voice through a hidden speaker. It's Dumas. "But this is not the end, Victor. This is only the beginning. You still believe control is the key. But what happens when the world no longer obeys you?" Victor does not answer. He stares into the lens, unflinching. The man who built empires from rubble will not be unraveled by a maze. But he now understands something he hadn't before: Dumas is not a lunatic. He is a strategist. And this whole labyrinth, is a declaration of war. And as the sun begins to set, casting long shadows through the corridors of hedges and lies, one truth becomes clear: no one will exit the maze the same. And for Victor Newman, survival is no longer just about escaping the trap, it's about reclaiming the battlefield. As Aristotle Dumas stepped through the whispering corridors of clipped hedges, his silhouette a dark shard against the fading light spilling through ragged openings in the overhead trellis, he knew exactly where Victor Newman would be, his presence revealed not by bravado but by the trembling beams of heat rising from the older man's exhausted form. Somewhere behind him, a hidden camera pivoted on silent servos, tracking each ragged breath, each struggle against panic. One moment Dumas was slinking through the maze's shifting patterns of hedge and shadow, the next, he emerged into a modest clearing where the gravel floor was marred by footprints and the compressed scent of sweat and fear. There, slumped against the warped metal of a half-buried signpost, Victor drew ragged breaths, his once pristine suit a sweat-stained prison. Dumas closed the distance with a predator's grace, mask glinting faintly in the twilight, and raised a gloved hand that held not a weapon but a twisted promise of confrontation. Victor, his steel-gray eyes flickering with a fierce light born from years of unbroken will, lifted his chin as though daring the man who now loomed before him to strike. They circled each other for the length of a single heartbeat that felt like an eternity, and then, as if goaded by some unspoken cruelty, they lunged. The shockwave of their collision rang out like thunder in that claustrophobic space. Dumas struck first, feinting low, then sweeping his arm in an arc meant to disarm rather than maim, though it would certainly have surprised even a seasoned opponent. Victor, however, channeled decades of corporate boardroom ferocity into a single, bone-crushing counterstrike aimed at Dumas's ribs. The labyrinth around them seemed to pulse with anticipation, as though it had been biding its time to witness this exact moment of unleashed animus. The two men grappled, each blow a calculated gamble, Victor's fist thudding against ribs hardened by calculated restraint, Dumas's elbow whistling through the air toward a face obscured by an impenetrable mask. They stumbled into the broken remains of an ornamental fountain. Stone shards and rusted metal that once held water now lay scattered like the detritus of a broken promise, and dust rose in ghostly plumes around them. Their fight was choreography of fury, every move a statement of unyielding will, until Victor, forcing Dumas backward with a final, savage shove, almost tasted victory. But Dumas's hand found the hidden butt of a handgun he had concealed beneath his cloak. In the dimming light, Victor saw the flash, heard the shot echo like a cracked trumpet in his chest, and felt his legs buckle. He fell between two hedgerows, the gravel tearing at his hands as he tried to push himself upright. Blood blossomed beneath his suit jacket, an alarm that spread across his pale skin in macabre patterns. As Victor pitched forward into the soft earth of a small flower bed long since abandoned, Dumas crouched above him, breathing heavily, mask inches from Victor's face. For a fraction of time shortened by terror, self-preservation flared, Victor's mind raced with the bitter taste of potential defeat, of a legacy undone in a moment of violent reckoning. Then his vision dimmed and the world slipped sideways. Dumas leaned in close and whispered, through lips he did not have to move, "You should have known better than to believe you controlled everything." As quickly as he had arrived, Dumas turned and melted back into the maze. The camera that had witnessed the act clicked off, leaving only the steady hum of the surrounding greenery. Moments passed in a hush so absolute that the quiver of a breath sounded like a cry for help. Then, far off in the maze's twisting corridors, faint shouts began, first a startled scream, then the frantic trample of hurrying feet. Billy's voice, sharp with disbelief and fear, cut through the stillness. "Victor. Victor, are you there? Help me, someone, Victor." Kyle's high-pitched call echoed after him, layered with self-reproach. "We shouldn't have split up. Lily, Audra, where are you?" Lily's own response was a broken wail, her tone torn between grief and primal terror. "Kyle, come back, please. I hear another shot, someone else is hurt." Audra, steadier but no less alarmed, barked instructions even as her voice cracked. "Find a way out of this damned place. If they hear us, they'll come. We can't stay hidden." Each shout reverberated along the hegemonic corridors of the labyrinth, as though anger and desperation themselves were alive within the hedges. Somewhere nearby, a secondary camera clicked, panning across the scene as though recording a final tableau of ruin. Billy and Kyle stumbled into the clearing where Victor lay, their eyes wide at the sight of the crumpled form and the vivid stain on his chest that darkened the surrounding gravel. Lily burst into tears and collapsed beside her father, pressing a trembling palm to his chest as though she could stanch the bleeding with sheer force of will. Audra reached them seconds later, her face pale beneath the sheen of perspiration, and there was a collective intake of breath so sharp it sounded like the world itself was inhaling in dread. None of them dared to touch Victor's face, his clothes, the grotesque channel his blood had carved in the earth, as though contamination would carry the horror inescapably into their souls. Behind them, the maze awaited, silent and inert for the first time since their descent into its twisted embrace. No footsteps pursued them. No challenge remained. It was as if the labyrinth had completed its task, rendering every participant raw and exposed. Outside the hedges, the longer shadows of evening stretched across the dew-damp earth, and the last slivers of daylight clung to the horizon. The sun itself seemed to hesitate, as though unwilling to witness what had transpired. In those final moments, as Victor's chest rose and fell in shallow gasps and Dumas's masked silhouette dissolved into the maze's penumbra, a single certainty crystallized: nothing would ever be the same in Genoa City again. And with that knowledge came a dread deeper than any hedge could conceal. Tessa sat on the wrought iron bench beneath the ancient oak, its broad branches filtering the late afternoon sun into mottled patterns on the pavement. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through Mariah's number for the third time, then pressed call and held the phone to her ear as if willing the line to connect. When it went to voicemail, she exhaled a shaky breath, then spoke with deliberate calm into the beeping prompt, "Mariah, it's me. I know we've drifted apart, but the distance between us is killing me. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'll be here to listen." She hung up and pressed her palms together, awake to the hollow echo of her own words. Moments later Phyllis emerged from the winding path, her heels clicking against the stone, a shadow of worry creasing her brow. "Tessa, are you okay?" she asked, settling beside her with a gentle urgency. Tessa met her friend's eyes and reminded her, "I called because I needed to, for more than just small talk." She leaned forward, voice low, "I'm not here to spy on Daniel. You asked me before, and I told you I wouldn't. I understand now, he needs time to recharge on his own." Phyllis nodded, relief and maternal concern mingling in her expression. She confessed she was about to leave on that business trip but was terrified that her son was shouldering every ounce of pain by himself. "Do you think he needs me right now?" she whispered, glancing down at her clasped hands. Tessa studied her friend as a breeze stirred the fallen petals at their feet. "Daniel's getting stronger," she said softly. "He's trying to find his own way, to decide what he wants his life to be. He's not retreating, he's gathering himself." Phyllis's features softened, a tremor of pride touching her lips. She looked at Tessa with the vulnerability of a mother who fears she might be asking too much. I just want to know he's all right," she admitted. Tessa reached out and squeezed Phyllis's hand. "And you deserve credit for that," she replied. "You've been a positive influence on him. He feels that, even if he won't always say it." Phyllis hesitated, words caught in her throat, then managed a small smile. "I was afraid to ask," she murmured. "But I need to know, what do you want from me, Tessa? What do you need?" Tessa returned her friend's gaze with quiet strength. "I don't need you to watch over Daniel or track him. I just need your honesty. If you ever worry, tell me. If you ever feel he's slipping, let me know. That's all." In the dappled sunlight of the park, mother and friend sat together, each understanding that love sometimes means stepping back, sometimes means speaking up. And that, for now, faith in Daniel's resilience was the greatest gift they could share.